Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. We're in the doldrums, the dead period here. But Inside the Birds keeps going. It's presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And just because it's the doldrums and there's no football going on for the Eagles doesn't mean we can't bring our great fans inside, as we do this once a year, inside the team's contracts situation. And we go through select contracts that really tell, Adam, two stories: the story of the player's contract and what it means for the player, but also not just his current, but the long term and how that might impact the team. As we know, contracts and business are a big part of how a team is put together. And any one, two, or three guys who don't cut it or have a great year can influence how their contract's going to look going forward. And what I really like about this show, Adam, and I'll let you kind of pick up on it, is there's a lot of contract information out there for public consumption on different websites, but those contracts some of them aren't accurate at all. Some of them are only halfway accurate. The ones that we're able to talk about and discuss and that we have are as accurate as they can be, and they've got a lot of those little details that are missing from the ones that sometimes you try to find on the internet. And those details are important.
Yeah. Understanding what an out is, because I won't mention the website. The way I look at it, because just talking with contract negotiators, like we'll explain Gardner Johnson's deal and why the Eagles could easily walk away after 1 year if it doesn't work. Where a contract website says that they've been out after 2 years. I don't look at it that way, the way they do it. Because they're like, well, even if it's like 50,000 guaranteed, well, that's not like, they don't look at that as an out like I do. If that's all that 50 grand is guaranteed, you could just cut the guy. Who cares about 50 grand? You and I might in our lives, but clubs don't care about that. They'll walk away after over 50 grand. So again, it's just your point of view, and we'll get into that. And it's you mentioned something in passing, which is really important. It's when the club could get out of the contract realistically. Like the Bradbury contract, there's a reason why he's still on the roster. It's the fully guaranteed money. The Eagles are looking for another way. We'll get into that later in the show of trying to get something out of them, because they clearly don't want to walk away from the guaranteed money right now.
Right. At least not without maybe getting anything in return. So we'll talk about it, whether it's him playing a different position or just being able to, ship him off at the last minute. So yeah, I look forward to this. It's always a good time to do this episode and really kind of give our listeners and our viewers a real inside look at how these contracts are structured and what they mean. As far as another inside look, if you go to InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew DeCecco doing a phenomenal job of keeping the content going, especially during the dead period. He wrote an interesting article about safety options and how there aren't that many great in-house safety options as far as depth is concerned. Right now, the starters are looking like CJ Gardner-Johnson, as Adam mentioned, and Reed Blankenship. You hope that Sidney Brown, who is progressing well, can add to this mix once he's 100%. But he's still just a second-year kid. So it looked at the overall depth at the safety position, some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses there. He also had a really nice job assessing the backup tight end job behind Dallas Goedert, which for the first time without Jack Stoll here really becomes, I mean, you've got your CJ Uzomah. He's expected to be the Y, but there's a lot of jockeying going on, though, for the one or two spots behind Dallas Goedert. And then there was a really good story about Ben Van Sumeren. Ben Van Sumeren put on some weight, Adam. I don't know if you caught that in the story, but he's up to I think the story said he's up to 245. I think he was around 232 last year. So,
that's small.
He said he wanted to get bigger, but not lose the speed. And there's an interesting part of the story where he got some really good advice last year from a player who was with the Eagles on how to train in the offseason, and he's taking it to heart. So really good stuff by Andrew DeCecco.
Nice. Yeah.
It's amazing how much we talk about guys' weights going either up or down or what their body looks like,
a lot of it.
The offseason. Yeah.
We have for years. I mean, we've talked about Mailata when he ballooned a couple years ago and they told him to lose weight and he did, but like almost immediately, he just went right at it. We've talked about Jordan Davis's weight and conditioning, and he's taken his weight seriously the last 2 years. We'll see about the conditioning again.
Yeah.
And then obviously Mekhi Becton's a big one. We're going to get into his contract because there's certainly upside for him if he can make the team and then also wind up playing. Maybe it's right guard, who knows? But weight is important. Conditioning is the thing we haven't talked enough about, where something that's kind of like a new thing at Inside the Birds. We're going to start looking at the conditioning of players.
Yeah, yeah. We'll maybe have to do a weight and conditioning podcast series like we
Yeah,
do with the contract
exactly.
one.
Yeah,
We just go through
exactly.
all these select players. Oh, this guy's
Yeah.
up 3 pounds. This guy's down 2. All right. The contracts are we'll talk about. We just do want to address some of the more pertinent news first, and that's obviously the Eagles. And I think we talked about this when it happened, but they did not get fined or charged or disciplined by the league for violating any policy of tampering pertaining to the free agent signing of Saquon Barkley. And I think when we went into the process, right, and we said this thing is going to take a while because it's done independently. And I mentioned we had been told that they literally hand over all the, whether it's cell phones or laptops, things like that, to an independent. I forget what the word is. It's a team of forensic like data scientists, right, who just go through and try to find things. And obviously the NFL didn't find what it thought it might find when it first started doing the investigation. The NFL said it spoke to everyone involved, including James Franklin, the Eagles, and did a whole search and of all the stuff and could not find evidence of tampering.
All right, so here's what we know, just to add to this. So we've been told that the NFL was there the third day of free agency. Well, let's put it so whoever was there was wearing like NFL jackets or something like whatever, so they could identify themselves that they were representing the NFL. They see cell phones, laptops, anything pertinent, and they went through it forensically as you were talking about, and they talked to the people they needed to talk to, and they found that the Eagles didn't do anything wrong. And the Eagles had maintained that, but you never really know until you get through it. I mean,
Right.
Howie Roseman's been GM since 2010.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have direct contact with the player. You talk to the agent. You just can't do that.
Right.
So he knows that, and he didn't get. Now the Falcons stunningly only lost a fifth, where what they did. See, you can't have the only time you can have direct contact with the player is if the player represents himself, which we've seen a couple times over the years. Richard Sherman did, I think, years ago. A couple other players, Bobby Wagner, by the way.
Who's the quarterback for the Patriots? Doesn't he do it? Jacoby Brissett?
Oh, Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, I know Bill Parcells was actually mentoring him and helping. Maybe he had an attorney help him too. But yeah, so anyway, the Falcons only lost a 5th-round pick and got fined $250,000, and the GM got fined as well. But like, there you go. Because so to move this along here, the Eagles still own 9 picks. Now remember, they made a bunch of trades during the draft because they didn't have a lot of picks for 2025. Now they do. They only have 4 of theirs: their first, their second, their third, and a 5th. But through trades over the last couple seasons, they've got Miami's 3rd for next year. The Detroit, they've made a couple transactions. You had the Swift deal, and then you had another deal. So they've got Detroit, a 4 from Detroit next year, a 5th from the Texans next year, then 2 conditionals. It's convoluted. 2 7ths are conditionals, which they could still get. So they'll have enough picks, and I mean, they certainly did and by the way, there's a great video from the Commanders social team where Roseman calls Adam Peters, the GM, is trying to finagle certain pick, and Peters isn't having it, and it's just really fun. I don't want to give it away. You got to see it. It's phenomenal, and I love when he goes, "Howie, you're a pain in the ass."
Yeah, yeah. It feels like it's the other representation of Howie Roseman that you don't always see. Usually on these videos, you see Howie like either getting one over or making
high-fiving.
High five. Yeah, this is the old. Well, Howie can be a villain sometimes too, or somebody's not going to deal with Howie just to deal with Howie.
Well, remember what Thomas Dimitroff told us, the former Falcons GM, at the Super Bowl a year ago.
Yeah,
he said he likes Howie a lot. He said, for the record, but he said what do you remember? He talked about
it's like he always feels the need to win the trade or something.
Right. Was it second round? He said something about second round picks.
Yeah, I forget what it was. And Thomas went into pretty good detail on what the deal was who was for and what. But he basically said, like, Howie, we're just not doing this. Like,
right, exactly. Like
he said, Howie,
I'm not doing this. Well, he kind of said, look, would you stop already with this?
Yeah.
It's kind of like in fantasy football when you try to get an advantage because you don't think the guy you're trading with is. What's that?
It's exactly what it is.
Exactly. Like you think you're getting over on the other guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you should. Oh, this guy won't play this year. Why would you?
Yeah, I'll throw
Wait,
my kicker in,
right, whatever, right, whatever. But Dimitrov was so demonstrative because we were actually there with him. Geoff and
Uh-huh.
I were there, and he started laughing. He goes, I love Howie, but it's like unless you tell him up front you're not doing that and get on him about it, he's going to keep trying.
Yeah, I tell you what I like about it though, and I'm kind of, I know Eagles fans are gonna roll their eyes and be annoyed, but you would like to think that Washington, after 30 years, finally has some good leadership and good direction, so that this could be a real division again, not just a
Yeah,
two-team.
yeah, it's
It's
true.
been a two-team race. Now that second team has fluctuated because the Giants have had a couple of decent seasons in the last 15 years, but then Dallas has not, or the Eagles once in a while don't. But like you would like to see the NFC East be like almost like the way the NFC West is, like real, like pretty legit with three teams, sometimes all four being decent enough to compete. Because this used to be the premier division in the NFL. Like, right now it's unquestionably the AFC North is just the best division in
Oh,
football. Like, I mean, it's
yep,
not even close. It's been that way for God knows how long. But I mean, the NFC East used to be the thing, but unfortunately, Washington was run terribly for quite a while.
yep.
Dallas has had its peaks and valleys. New York has certainly had peaks and valleys. So I don't know. I like to see Washington have some good leadership and bring that franchise back.
Yeah, and look, they had a very aggressive draft, but you get over to the AFC North. I mean, you can make legit case. All of those teams can make the playoffs: Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, the NFC least, which we called it a couple years when it was really bad.
Oof.
Washington's been mostly bad for years, and you mentioned the ownership change. And oh, by the way, it's funny on that video, Josh Harris, the Sixers owner and New Jersey Devils owner, the new Washington Commanders owner, you could hear him. He said something
This
like,
guy.
"He's unbelievable. He's reacting to Howie because
Yeah.
Howie's trying to get something from him. It's kind of funny, really
Yeah,
good,
that old
really good.
this guy. Come on, this guy.
Yeah,
Three
right.
months ago I was hitting him up for some help, but now I'm gonna
Pretty funny.
Yeah. All right. So that's the deal with the tampering situation. The Eagles got away scot-free, and we will go inside the contracts in a second. First, we're going to pause to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, if we're going to start looking at contracts, I think we got to start always at the most important position on the team, and that's quarterback. And right now, the two real contracts to discuss would be Kenny Pickett's and, of course, Jalen Hurts' mega contract that he signed before the start of last year, which, as we said at the time, yeah, he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and he's coming off an MVP season. I remember us saying, give it a couple weeks, give it a couple
Hmm.
months. Then Lamar signed his deal, then so and so signed his deal, then Burrow signed his deal, and here we are a year later, Adam, and Trevor Lawrence just signed a mega deal himself. And I don't know, you probably have it in front of you. Like Hurts is probably no longer even top five. And is that true in what he's making per annual salary?
55 million a year. Yeah, it's
Is that still
55.
top five?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He Burrow's deal's better based on certain parameters of it, but
Right. Isn't Herbert's deal also a little more and
I,
Lamar's deal a
I
little more?
don't know. I honestly, I just know that Burrow's is because Burrow's was. I just remember gathering some background on him, people who knew, and there were certain things that Burrow wanted in it. Yeah, Burrow's and Lawrence's got 55 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then when you look at Lamar's deal, his is 52 million a year, but the guaranteed signing is very strong. Like he
Right.
did that with help. Remember, he didn't have an agent,
Correct.
and he was doing that off the tag, the franchise tag, because he was
Right.
he's obviously he got that extension well into his career further than Hertz was.
Right.
And Hertz, remember when they did this, Hertz came off of the magical season of 22.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got we'll get to Hertz right now. He's got I think a 7 or 6 year void for cap purposes. And what happened is the Eagles got a very big break on fully guaranteed money. We'll explain this, but and this is similar to the Kyler Murray deal, but both sides have to get something that they're happy with. And the structure of the so-called advanced guarantees, where the player, let's say the player's on the roster in March, his base salary next year becomes fully guaranteed. That's what's called advanced guarantees, which came into about around 10 years ago with Jay Cutler's contract. First time I'd ever seen anything like that. And it's a way, because clubs, there's when you fully guarantee cash, you have to put a certain amount of it in escrow, aka on the side. It's not 100% of it, but it's a large chunk of it. And clubs don't always have as wealthy as these clubs are. They don't really want to put that many million aside at one time. Because if you have to, like remember now, the Eagles did a ton of extensions this year. It's a lot of fully guaranteed money on the side. Now, obviously, you have deferrals you can do. A lot of clubs do deferred money. You pay some, March 1st, you pay some September 1st, you pay next year in March and so forth. But getting over to Hurts's contract, he's basically by structure. There's just based on the way this thing's structured. Not only is he locked to be here through 25, which is in 2 years, this season and next. Just based on the guaranteed structure, he's got a lot of guaranteed money in 26 that gets guaranteed in 2024. It's kind of like a 2-year advance guarantee. Again, because the full guaranteed signing wasn't great, there had to be a compromise, and then there's a bunch of fully guaranteed money that vests in 25 for 26. So to me, and this is really mirrors Kyler Murray's deal, and why the Cardinals are kind of stuck with Murray for a couple of years, because all this guaranteed money becomes guaranteed the year before, based on the player being on the roster in March, and they're kind of stuck.
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you though about the doomsday scenario, because I feel like we had the same sort of conversations about Carson a year after he signed his deal, where it's like you can't move on from him because of what they owe him, and then the Eagles take the biggest dead money at the time. Biggest dead money hit. Let's go with like the 2% scenario here, which I think it would be like the Eagles winning 6 or fewer games and Jalen Hurts just being terrible, which again, 98% chance that's not going to happen, right? Even if he's not, it's not going to be that bad. But if they felt like they needed to move on after this year and they just couldn't bring him back as the starter, hurt, injury, anything, could they just absorb again the biggest dead money cap hit?
I would say right now, by structure, he's pretty much a lock to be with the team through 2026. They definitely have an out after 26. Now, when I say that, okay, on your point, let's say let's say the next 2 years aren't very good. The problem is he's got an option. See, Eagles are the kings of the option bonuses, and by the way, some other teams are doing this now. A couple of the extensions which have been done have been a very Eagle structure. They've kind of copied off of it because the way that it was explained to me is that the Eagles do all that they can to keep their players for as long as they can by structure.
Right.
And they somewhat kick the can down the road. Some teams don't like that. They like to pay as they go. But you just have to be right on the player. Now, Eagles weren't really wrong on the player when they did the extension with Wentz, who knew he'd go south starting in 19. Yeah. That was the year of the aggression. Ironically, they extended him in June of I think we had the 3-year anniversary like last week.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. What are the chances? But you can't really plan on that. You're with the guy every day. You just don't think this will happen. But hey, it went south. Yeah, he struggled, he regressed, and he wanted out. And as you said, as we know, we've talked about this before, they reluctantly gave him they got him out. Because it could have been a real problem had they didn't trade him to Indy or somewhere else. So on your doomsday scenario, based on what was sent to me, it would seem to me that 26 would be his last year if he was really bad.
Wow. And then, so even if he's really bad, again, 2% chance that this is going to happen, they would have to ride him again in 2025, the whole year.
Oh, yeah.
Are you saying after 2026 or going into 2026?
I would say after 26. Now, if you're saying
they're not patient enough to do that. If he was terrible, they'll figure something out.
Well, here's the problem. Okay, let's extrapolate this and then move on to Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we're going to talk about Pickett. He's got an advance guarantee on about $31 million. So he's basically owed $51 million in option bonus and base salary for the 26 season. So basically, almost all of it becomes fully guaranteed in March of 25. That's the problem. He's got this advance on it. If he's on the roster in March, it vests in 20. The cash in 26 vests, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't see them. So the cash that they would owe him if he's on the roster in March and 25 for 26.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, 3.7, 20 million. Oh yeah, almost all of the 51 million, almost all of it. That's why he's pretty much going to be on the roster after through 26. Now, if they want to cut him after 26, after the 26 season,
mm-hmm.
well, okay, you 22 million is a lot to walk away from, but 22 million of his $50 million option bonus becomes fully guaranteed in March of 26, so the year before. Could they walk away from 22 million? Yeah, if he stay. Look. By the way,
Yeah.
Okay, here's an example. I believe it was 37 million that the Broncos walked away from with Russell Wilson. They just cut him. Nobody would take him. So there's your example. It's 22
they'll
million.
start over. I mean, that's why they're always
right on your point. Right. That would be it. 26.
I just wonder about their pay. That would be a lot of patience for if they don't make the playoffs 2 straight years. You're basically saying they still got 1 more year of Hurts, or I don't know.
If it's because of him, if everybody knows it's because of him, if he's the reason,
right?
Sure, yeah. Like sometimes you suck it up. You go, you know what? It's going to hurt our cap,
right?
But he's, if this player is so bad, no matter what position is, if a pass rusher, it's like with Von Miller. Von Miller did an extension with the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know he would tear his ACL. And he's not the same player.
Right.
Vaughn did them a solid. He wound up doing a restructure and a pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just have to walk away and go, you know what? It didn't work out. And as you mentioned, and we're going to move on in a second here with Wentz's contract, the Eagles sucked it up. They took a major salary cap hit on a trade. Remember, that was a trade. They didn't cut him. They traded him.
Right.
But because of the acceleration of the bonus money, they got socked for it. And they had to suck it up, and it's just that this is what happens sometimes. So yeah, I would say he'd have to be super, super bad where they just don't want him on the roster. He's pretty much going to be with the Eagles through 26. After 26, yes.
Okay.
Realistically.
And real quick, because I want to be fair, right? On the flip side, the guy is an MVP. Eagles win the Super Bowl. Does he get to say, hey, I need to be more than 55 million a year, Trevor Lawrence? I need to be more than whatever Dak is going to re-sign at. When Dak resigns, it'll be 57, 60, right? Does he quickly then get the opportunity to say, I need to be back in the top 3 if they win the Super Bowl?
It's too subjective. It's strictly how
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, it's got to be clear to everyone's eyes. Quarterback's usually pretty easy to tell when a guy's elite. Like Hurts was. We could all debate what elite means, but to me, he was phenomenal in 22.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what else you can. I know he fell off last year. That's a fact. We know that. But if he revives his career here, because honestly, if you look at if you look at the cash that he's due, 26, 27, I could certainly see. And from a cap standpoint, his cap numbers aren't bad. But once you get into 27 and 28, his last year of his contract is 28. That's when the cap numbers are getting really big, and they'll have motivation to do something. But that's way down the road. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to be fair and look at, but I don't want people to be like, oh, you're only asking about what happens if he falls on the table. I also want to know what happens if he's elite again after all these quarterbacks who are, Dak has not won anything yet. Goff hasn't won anything. What happens if Hurts wins the Super Bowl? Does he get a chance to then say, all right, I need to be re-upped again? Well, that's obviously a discussion for down the road. So it does bring to light, though, that their backup, Kenny Pickett, is a former first-round pick of the Steelers. He's going to be learning this new offense. He's here on a fairly cap-friendly contract.
Really cap-friendly.
Really cap-friendly, but it's ephemeral. Like, it's not going to be that way for, once you start talking fifth-year option and things like that, it doesn't get, for a backup quarterback, that team-friendly, correct?
Yeah, and obviously they would never pick that up no matter what happens.
Correct.
Yeah, they're not picking it up. So because of the signing bonus proration, which the Steelers got socked with, the Eagles don't pick that up in a trade. It always stays with the originating club.
Right.
So his cap, it's just really funny. So Geoff and I put this out, and I think you saw it on Twitter. Literally, when the Pickett trade was made, Easton Stick, what did he agree to a deal 5 minutes later? It was within a
Yes,
couple hours,
5
right?
minutes. It was like 10 seconds later.
Really?
Yeah, it was
it
very,
within 5 minutes?
it was very within. Yeah,
So
it
the
was
Eagles,
5 minutes.
as we reported at the time, they were very deep in talking to Easton Stick because of the natural connection to Doug Nussmeier and Kellen Moore, who they worked with last year and with the Chargers. So that was their backup plan. But they executed the trade for Pickett, who signed through 2025. His salary cap number is a very team-friendly 1.983 million because, again, there's no signing bonus proration because the Steelers got socked with it. So his base salary of $985,000 is fully guaranteed. He's got a training camp roster bonus of $998. That's a third day of training camp, which should be around the 30th of July, somewhere around there. That's it. His cash is his cap because there's no signing bonus. And then next year it goes up, but the cool thing is it's his base salary of 2.6 million. Yeah, it's fully guaranteed. That's you're talking about a somewhere in the lower half of backup quarterback pay. That's really
like
good.
$2 million, right? $2 million. Would they pay more?
2.6.
Yeah, would they pay Mariota last year?
Oh, 5 million.
Oh, 5. That's right. 5.
Yeah.
5. Yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Now again, I know Pickett struggled last season. Like the hope is with this is yet another coach I talked to this past week who knows Kellen Moore goes, man, that's a quarterback friendly offense. I'm like, how do you know that? You never work with him? It goes, because I know Kellen's offense. I was like, okay. All right. So let's hope that for Pickett's sake and everything we've heard, Pickett's really happy not only to be an Eagle, but he's pretty he likes this offense. Talked to someone who knows him, so we'll see. If he has to play, we'll see how he does. But I hope obviously he doesn't play and Hurts is healthy. But that's it for those quarterbacks. But again, that's a great contract to have, and you could certainly understand. And the Eagles liked him for that draft, so we'll see how he does.
Right. All right. So for the rest of the offense, we'll just pick out a couple of players that we think that have something interesting in their contract that might impact this year or the year going forward. People obviously want to know more about Saquon Barkley and what the real deals of his contract is, Adam.
Yeah. So he signed a 3-year deal. It's really a 2-year structure.
Right.
So through the first 2 years, he's basically going to make 24.5 million fully guaranteed. It's pretty much what it is. It's a signing bonus, base salaries. He's got, which we rarely see, fully guaranteed roster bonuses, but he's got to be up for the game. It's kind of a weird deal. But then in year 3, he's got very little guaranteed money. 1.5 million of his $12 million base is fully guaranteed. So they would walk away from that if he's hurt, if he's not staying healthy. My feeling is this, and I'm sure you feel the same way. If he's healthy, he's going to be really good for them. Best offensive line he's ever going to play with, you would think.
Yeah, I think some of that best offensive line stuff gets overstated because Josh Jacobs played behind a pretty mediocre to bad at times offensive line and with the Raiders and still had some great seasons. But I obviously think he's got a chance. Again, DeAndre Swift had more yards than him last year, but this was sort of the whole we were confused
too.
Yeah. So we'll see. But Barkley is to me is going to be a guy who always struggles to stay healthy because of the way he runs the ball, and how much volume he can get when healthy. But we'll see. He should be better. I mean, he's certainly more explosive than anything the Eagles have had at that position.
I know our friend Joe Banner, he thinks Barkley's going to blow it up here. He is just. I was like, wow. Because Joe and I don't see it. Joe thinks Eagles got a bargain. He and I just don't see it the same way. When we have Joe on, Joe's insistent doing it right up, hugging it with us on Patreon right before training camp starts because he wants to preview. He said he's got a lot to say, but because we're, as you mentioned, we're kind of in the dead zone. He wants to give us a lot of stuff. We appreciate that. What Joe said was, look, this is going to be a really good offensive line. Now, we could talk about centers, not Kelsey. Right guard's going to be new, so you have 2 pretty significant changes. But the other 3 guys are pretty gifted, and he thinks he'll be a great fit for the scheme. So we'll see. But you're right about the injury history. You worry about that. And he's a one-cut runner. Again, he's new to this scheme, by the way. This blocking scheme's different than he played with the Giants.
Right.
But so to move this along here, basically it's a 2-year structure, and the Eagles could walk away just owing them $1.5 million. There'd be a decent amount of dead money, but Eagles and dead money. They're one of the teams. I'm not saying they don't care about it. They're willing to walk away from dead money. It's not dead money's really overrated. People love to talk about it, but so many teams walk away from it because they're trying to win.
Right.
It's there's certain things you're willing to live with. There'd be based on the signing bonus and the 1.5 million fully guaranteed of the 12 million base salary. That's where the dead money would come in for 26 if they move away from him. But obviously, you want it to work, and this is going to be fun to watch him in this offense. The question there is, and I keep being asked this: will he catch the football? Do you think he will catch the football? I don't know.
That is a good question. So I guess the way to look at it is, if Saquon Barkley is great, this is a great deal for the Eagles. If he's not good, and you wonder if he should be the starter going into next year, well, he'll still be on the team. But as it goes with running backs, as we've seen before with the Eagles, you don't have to be the highest paid running back on the team to have the most carries, because last year the highest paid running back was Boston Scott, and he had the fewest carries. So that'll be a thing
2
that
million.
they figure out. Yeah,
2 million to get. By the way, on your point, I forgot to mention that. So next year, 25 is base salary, fully guaranteed 11 million. So that it's hard to walk away from that. It's just hard. I mean, he would have to. I can't imagine, other than injury, him not doing well. I just find this hard to believe. And the run game coordinator is stout. So you would think this all would work, but we got to get there first.
Definitely. All right, at wide receiver, the Eagles gave out 2 really big extensions, obviously, to A.J. Brown and to Devontae Smith, and that basically ensures that these guys are going to be Eagles for at least 2 to 3 years, just on the finances alone, and obviously they're good enough to be, and it's hard. This is a position where it's hard to see, like quarterback, we could talk, or running back, fall flat on the face, but these guys are pretty consistent. It would be like almost crazy. The only thing that, to me, keeps Devontae or A.J. Brown from being really good is if they get hurt. So, and that factors in differently with the contract. But let's talk about the Paris Campbell 1-year deal. Anything that jumps out with you on that?
Yeah, and I'll get back to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith real quickly after that. Yeah, so with Devontae Parker's retirement, he's the default number 3. He can place him on the outside if you want him to. He's probably better off playing inside. Because of his injury history, and he got benched last season, he this is an opportunity for him to play, but the guarantee is very small. It's 1 year, 1.3 million, just over 400 grand fully guaranteed at signing. It's certainly a cuttable contract. This is kind of like he's got to prove himself, but he's in a situation where who's really competing against him? Could you think of anyone who could challenge him for the 3?
No. And I mean, I think the rookie would have to be, Anaya Smith would have to be exceptional to really, or maybe by the end of the year, because sometimes you see rookies who do well, first few months, and then by the end of the year, they overtake a veteran, and certainly that'll be there for Anaya Smith, but he's got to learn a lot. He's got to bridge the gap from having that stress fracture. He's got to really get in there and show what he can do, but he's only 5'9", right? I mean, it's going to be tough. I guess if you're a slot receiver, you can get away with being 5'9".
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Paris Campbell, man, this is just, I think what we have to really look forward to is, does Howie make a move that brings in somebody else at that position?
Ryan, could you, see, Smith is only an inside receiver. Smith, by the way, is fine. He's totally healthy. He looked pretty good when I was there, except for the drop punts, and the coaches got him on him about it. But he did in 7-on-7s, he looked pretty healthy. But so Smith and Campbell right now is their top backup receiver, because they have no experience other than Campbell, other than John Ross too, I should mention, who certainly is no lock to make the team. At least he'll be brought to training camp. We'll see how he performs when it really counts, when there's real competition. But getting back to A.J. Brown, by structure, they're pretty much locked in through 2026. So this season and 2 more, then they can get out without owning anything. There's an advance guarantee on his option bonus, which is due in 26. It vests in 25 on the 5th day of free agency in March.
Mm-hmm.
So they're locked in through 26, and that's it. They can get out now. Knock on wood, he continues to stay healthy. That trade that the Eagles made with the Titans looks better and better and better. It's just, man, and AJ was very upfront at the low ball offer they made him, and how disappointed he was with that offer.
Yeah,
and the Titans can only go on their information, but I'm not saying that they were wrong. It just didn't work out for them at all.
No, especially since Treylon Burks really hasn't been. He's the guy they used with that 1st-round pick, and he has not yet, after 2 years, established himself in any tangible way for them.
Yeah.
The depth that we're talking about here at wide receiver, number 3 receiver, that was a big topic of discussion overall that we had the other night with our Patreon community on our Ask ITB live stream. It was a really good chat And it made Adam and I realize, like, we're not the only ones that have some concerns here. You know, we're not the Negadelphian reporters. All the questions that we were asked in that great chat were about concerns at depth, at not just wide receiver, but offensive line, safety, some running back depth concerns, although we weren't as concerned, but just overall depth compared to what the Eagles have had in the past. So it was a great chat. We do these every other week now, as you know, for our Patreon community. Adam does a weekly Discord chat for the Patreon community. Just great reasons to become a part of our growing, expanding Patreon community. You need to get in at patreon.com/inside the birds. We are relaunching. We gave our Ask ITB live stream people, and then, you know, we put it on the channel for all members. So anybody who watched it got a little sneak peek of what's to come with our Patreon expansion. We gave away some of the things that were added content that we'll be bringing to the platform. Not all of it did we give away, but we leaked a little bit of the information, and look forward to a couple of weeks from now really being able to tell everyone, Patreon masses, everything we're doing this upcoming season on Patreon.
Yeah, we give a lot of heads up on in fact on content coming out. Yeah, the Patreon people learn first. Then also, I think we kind of give play-by-play free agency before anything got known. And on Discord, we also in Discord, that's where we'll do the chat this week, which will either be on Wednesday or Thursday night. You go, here's what they're working on, here's what we're hearing. And like play-by-play, it would just go within hours or days, it would just happen. Can't get all of it right, but we also told you who they're looking at. We gave you the list of players. We gave you some draft intel there as well. So as Geoff said, patreon.com/insidethebirds and become a member. And we're so excited for the season. It's going to be fascinating because there's a lot of mystery with this team. We think we know, but as they say, when you think you know, you don't know. But it's going to be fun to see what happens with the Eagles this season.
Yeah. All right, let's finish off offense. 2 contracts in particular, and I love this conversation we're going to have on Dallas Goedert, who is signed through 2025. Yep. But Adam, I mean, this guy's got to play. Well, it's not that he's played poorly. We've sort of been waiting for that huge banner 1,000-yard season, which I think we thought was coming the year they went to the Super Bowl. He had a couple of injuries that year. He was on pace, I think, for it. But this offense with Kellen Moore and his reputation for tight ends, you would think there's a good opportunity for Dallas to have a good season here, a real strong season.
Yeah, no doubt. Sometimes it's a little bit overrated tight end friendly. The tight ends with the Chargers had to get involved because they ran out of receivers.
Right.
But yeah, Goddard, man, because this is going to be, it should be, based on what I've heard, mostly a spread offense. Goddard will fit in real well with that as their move tight end. He obviously plays some Y, and it depends on the formation, but, and as we've talked about, when they do the shifting stuff, when they go 12 personnel, he does a little bit, he's done 21 before, but it's not that, you know, like Kyle Shanahan, when he plays 21, one of them's the fullback, and that's Juszczyk.
Right.
He uses just 2 tight ends, but he has one as an F tight end offset. But Goddard, you're right. I agree. Goddard should do well in this offense. And 25 is no guarantee. There was some guaranteed money this year, but 25, there's no guaranteed money. He's got an option bonus due in March of $14 million. He's got to play well for them to want to extend his contract, or he's just got to play well. And he's getting up there. He turns, let's see here. He turns 30. Man, where's time gone? He turns 30 in January. So,
yeah, I mean, if we're in November, we do this every once. I always talk about, like, there's the guys who just all of a sudden you don't anticipate, right, going into the year, that just aren't what they are. But if we're in November and we're saying, where is Dallas Goedert in this offense? Or, man, this guy's missed 6 of the last 7 games. That's problematic for him going forward. I mean, we saw how they felt about Sayamalo after Sayamalo had a bunch of injuries, and we'd reported, hey, this guy could be on the chopping block, but he wound up staying healthy those last 2 years and was able to see his contract through. But there was a time where his injuries were starting to pile up, and his inavailability was, bothering the organization. Now, Goddard's not been nearly as injured as Sayamalo, but the point is, as you're making with the guaranteed money running up, if he's just lost in this offense, or it's not working out for him, could be looking at, different tight end one in 2025, I guess, right?
Well, I could certainly see them if they're not happy drafting his replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Only if they're not happy. He's never been quite be able to pull it together, mostly because of injury. It's not performance. I mean, the guy, by the way, he's a good blocker. He's a good 2-way tight end.
Yeah.
Have we overrated him? I don't know. I'm not.
Well, I think that what we've learned is that, is a monster in the zones. He does have trouble getting off of man coverage. He's not he can't run routes like Zach Ertz did. He can do things that Zach Ertz couldn't block,
Better athlete.
more physical, better athlete. His hands aren't as good. He has more drops than I recall Zach having, especially after Zach's first few years when, the crowd got on him and so he became really elite there. But he does have that tendency against the really good defenses, Adam, who can press you, who can man you up, to not have his best games there. So I think that's where he's got to really take it to another level if he can.
Yeah. So this is a big year for him. It's not like anyone's pushing him because they don't have that guy yet, but they could next year. And draft decisions always tell you stories, and certainly in 25, if Goddard doesn't stay healthy, if he plays like 15 games, I'm sure he'll have a great season.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing is with him, and it's weird injuries, man. Some weird, odd injuries.
Yes, definitely. Didn't he remember when he broke his hand last year, right? Or he had the bloody hand. I forget what game it was. Then he came back like 2 weeks later. Yeah. Washington
on a run after the catch play, wasn't it? Run after catch.
Yeah, right on the sideline. Yeah. All right, offensive line, Adam. Mekhi Becton is becoming an interesting person not just because of, he's a former first-round pick, and now they're looking at him at guard along with tackle, but they gave him some guaranteed money.
Yeah, one thing on that, just to mention, Mailata, Dickerson, and Lane Johnson are locks to be, unless Lane retires, which I doubt, based on his last extension.
Mm-hmm.
But by structure, Dickerson, Johnson, and Mailata will be with the Eagles through 2026 at a minimum. They're signed past that. It's just by structure,
right?
But there's a provision in Lane's contract where they pretty much will have to redo his deal after 26 if he wants to continue to play. But so that's good that they'll be with the team through then. Those studs, and then you've got Becton. Is fascinating because with his weight and injury history, the Eagles did him a solid in that. It's 1 year, $2.75 million. All of it's fully guaranteed, but they also put in playing time incentives. I think the breakdown's like 60, 70, 80%, something like that. And he gets each number that he hits is like, it's either 500,000, 750 or $1 million. It's up to 275. So he can make up to 5.5 million this season. If he went up, honestly, if they let him compete at right guard and he wins it, he probably that's the only way he would probably see it all. But the other thing with him is, Fred Johnson's still here. He probably will be on the roster. Eagles will like him. This is a big, this right guard thing. I know they're handing, they're not handing Tyler Steen the job, but they want him to win it. They expect him to be their starting right guard, but it's not a lock.
Right.
So we'll see what they do with Becton in training camp. That to me is a big storyline. Where does Becton line up at training camp?
Right. I agree. And I don't think you give him a contract like this unless you feel like there's the possibility of it happening. Maybe they had competition, but then for them to say, all right, well, we'll give you these bonuses based on playing time, must have felt like, okay, there's a chance it could happen. If not, then just let somebody else pay him, for that kind of money. Cause he hasn't really done anything in the NFL, but they must have felt like there's an opportunity here.
Well, apparently when healthy, some of his tape has been good.
Yeah.
But he's missed so much time.
Yeah.
A significant chunk of his career due to weight and the pressure that he's put on his legs and his knee. But bottom line is he's healthy. I love what he had to say in their offseason program. We'll see how that manifests itself in training camp. And he loves stout, man. He really loves stout. So we'll see if he could play at a high level or practice at a high enough level. And also, by the way, we'll see what the preseason looks like for him. I assume he'll play in the preseason games. Why would he not? Right?
Yeah. Why would he not? Right. All right, let's flip the sides. Go on the defense. We'll stay in the trenches. And I want, the Josh Sweat renegotiation has had me thinking a lot lately. So as we know, we reported this when it happened. He restructured his deal. He took a pay cut. So you go ahead into the contract, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it.
The total cash previously was like 17 million, around there.
Right.
They cut him down to 10 million. 9.5 million of it's fully guaranteed. His base salary of the veteran minimum of 1.125 million, the signing bonus, and he's got per game roster bonuses. But I know the base and the signing bonus obviously fully guaranteed. So 9.5 of the $10 million are fully guaranteed, and That was the compromise. The Eagles, because if you're Josh Sweat, it's like if you're going to take a giant, if you're going to ask me to take a giant pay cut, you better fully guarantee my money, so I know you can't cut me.
Right.
And that was obviously the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's clearly going to be on the roster this season. That's not in question. But man, his future after what happened last year, and he wasn't the only one. So much dropped off, and the criticism we got from other clubs who watched the Eagles coaching tape before they would go up against them over the last like 6 or 7 games. And Sweat was one of them. Like his performance dropped off. People were like, I don't know what he's trying to do, and same with Jalen Carter, and I don't know but see, I think this stuff is gone now with Clint Hurt, with Vic Fangio. That stuff's out the door. Like that ain't gonna work here with these guys.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what concerns me, Adam, is that he took the pay cut as an edge rusher who's only had, it was really just a bad second half, and maybe there's a lot of reasons into it, but to be paid just 10 million to be a starting edge rusher, only make 10 million a year, it makes me think that he felt and his camp felt that if he didn't agree to it and he got cut, he would not have been able to make more than that on the free agent market, which for an edge rusher who has accomplished what he's accomplished last 2-3 years is pretty glaring. And agents are good. It's not that like they're just guessing; they do their back channel work. So that makes me think that the Josh and his camp were concerned that the money wouldn't be there for him, and you would have to ask yourself, well, why? Because pass rushers get a lot of money on the free agent market, even if they're not the best pass rushers. So
he's a really good all-around player, but he's not even close to an elite pass rusher. He's just a good when he's at his best.
Right.
He's a two-way player. He'll play the run. He's long. He gives effort.
Yep.
I don't know what the hell happened late last season. I don't know.
You just nailed it to me. I wonder if his role now as a $10 million a year defensive end is a little bit like Vinny Curry's role on the Super Bowl team, where you're a first and second down DN, but when we go pass rush, you're off the field, and that's when we get our Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff and BG moves inside and Jalen Carter or Zach. But I wonder if he is no longer a part of their main third down.
I can't imagine. 10 million is too much money for the guy not to be in. You're not paying the guy to play 2 downs there's no way they're paying him.
But remember, Vinny was in the middle of a contract. He had gotten the extension, I think, the year before because Doug Peterson took over, right? And Chip was gone, and Howie had to like sign these guys. Howie had a bunch of guys. Yeah.
Go ahead. I think I have access to that. Go ahead.
But I mean, we'll see. 10 million for a defensive end is not a ton of money for a good pass rusher. Isn't high end money. So I don't know. Maybe he's part of it, but if it doesn't work out, then they go on to somebody else. But they do have a lot of different edge rushers now that they're going to feel the need to get on the field. Huff.
I agree, but man,
and Nolan Smith.
Yes, especially Nolan Smith. Man, he's got to play. But I know Sweat when he's at his best. He's really hard to talking to some of the club's offensive line coaches they played over there. When he's at his best, he's so long. He's hard to move, and plus, when when that leg is decent, he moves better than you think because he takes giant steps. He's really hard to block when he's at his best, but he's not an elite pass rusher. He's just not what he is. So. But he's just 10 million is a lot of money for him not to play. And I'd be shocked if he's not playing in nickel. Now, doesn't mean he's going to be in every nickel. And on your point, if Smith looks more explosive than Sweat, maybe they split it up.
Yeah,
maybe they roll because Nolan, you really want to see him progress. Like last year, he didn't have a chance. We understand that, but Sweat dropped off and he still wasn't playing. So, and honestly, their whole pass rush dropped off. So that was concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if he does look anything like the Josh Sweat from 2 years ago in the first half of last year at $10 million, that's a damn steal right there. So that would be really good.
Yeah,
on the Eagles.
Look, he's just real quick. He's got a lot of motivation. He's only 27 years old. He just turned 27 in March.
Right.
He's still young. He's been a great story of development. Yes, he dropped off. He took a pay cut. The tape is the tape. Clearly, and you made a great point. Agents will do their own background gathering about it. Hey, my guy might be available.
Right.
If he did, would you be interested? And then obviously you could talk behind the scenes with money. So I agree. I'm sure that happened. I'm sure that because good agents do that.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. But this edge rush group is fascinating because there are a lot of questions.
Right. Now, obviously, the biggest addition, the newest addition, Bryce Huff from the Jets, a guy who's been a DPR for most of his career, designated pass rusher, has been great at it. He comes over now and he'll be asked to play more snaps. Now, he signed what, this has been like the thing for the last 4 to 5 years, is signing free agents to 3-year deals. Helps the team, helps the player. They get to become a free agent again, not too far down the road like they did with Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, this is a typical Eagles short term, first 2 years fully guaranteed, third year no guaranteed money.
Yep.
So yeah, he'll make a whopping $37 million over the first 2 years fully guarantees. They're convinced on your point, they're clearly convinced he's a full-time player.
Mm-hmm.
You don't pay this guy $34 million and him not to be in nickel or anytime that you need an edge rush. So now we'll be on every base down. We don't know that yet. We'll learn more in training camp. There's a lot we don't know because you can't really do much. There's no physical play in OTAs, so you learn more. And then the third year, which is the last year of his deal, and by the way, he's got a 4-year void for cap purposes. There's a roster bonus due, a $1 million roster bonus due on the 5th day of free agency in 2026. He's got a typical Eagle structure, a just under $18 million option bonus, which is also due in March. So what would happen is if he's tearing it up, he's getting an extension like that. That's happening. Like and by the way, Ryan Silverfield did tell us, the Memphis head coach, he knows Huff. I guess Huff checked in with him in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Silverfield did say like he's absolutely convinced that he'll handle being an instant millionaire really well. Because think about it, this guy wasn't even drafted. He's from Mobile, Alabama, was not even invited to the Senior Bowl. Think about that.
You can hear all about that again on our Patreon channel, Inside the Birds, or patreon.com/Inside the Birds. It really is a phenomenal story.
Mm-hmm. So third year, just before we move on here, it's going to come down to see that third year, whether it's an extension or come back, he's got to perform. If he does, Eagles will be happy to pay him.
Yep, 100%. All right, so I get a good laugh at the inside linebacker contract situation we're going to talk about because it reminds me of my conversations last year. Eagles signed Nick Morrow like on the first day of free agency. They give him zero guaranteed money. I mean, the guy had played, he had made over 100 tackles. I mean, he's been with a bunch of teams. He usually plays that. He's durable and all that, right? Then they signed Greedy Williams as like a backup corner that they hope to make the team, and he gets $600,000 guaranteed. And I'm like, how does Greedy Williams, who's proven nothing in this league, get $600,000 guaranteed? And Nick Morrow, who's been a starter, right, got zero guaranteed money. And I laugh at that because I'm looking here at Devin White and Zach Bond and thinking about how much Devin White has accomplished in his career. Even though he's coming off a bad year, he's made all pro teams 2 times in a row, won a Super Bowl. And then there's Zach Bond, who's been a special teamer and has not played a whole lot of defense in his career. And yet both of these guys have the same guaranteed money at him on their contracts.
Very interesting. So, I actually didn't know this. So I one of my contract guys said, hey, you should be aware of something that the Eagles did, which is interesting. And it's on your point. So Devin White, he's 1 year for just under $5 million, $3.5 million of it is fully guaranteed at signing.
Mm-hmm.
Could they walk away from it? Yeah, they could if he has a terrible training camp. And I know he took the most reps at inside backer of all of their inside backers, and because they will start 2 of them. Well, they'll dress the 2 will play. It's just a matter. He's just got to perform. I mean, it's not like they have any insurance policies, so they're all of them have questions. It's kind of odd. They have a lot more of them this year. But they all have questions. But so Devin White. So what they did is he's got a signing bonus of over $2.5 million. He's got he's got a fully guaranteed workout bonus. It's $3.5 million, and then I don't have this part. I'm guessing of his $2.25 million, they fully guaranteed just a little bit to get it up to $3.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
If he's on the roster this season, he's going to make $4.9 million. That's pretty. I would say pretty much a lock. So that's probably what he's going to make. But they get to say they only guarantee $3.5 million, but it's just a majority of his base salary is not guaranteed. Yeah, I mean, they could theoretically cut him right before the season started if he's not playing well, but I can't find a scenario because it's
yeah, I'm with you.
Someone's just got to blow up and trade.
They're not good enough to be able to cut him. They're just they need
right. Now Zach Bond, he's got a 1-year deal. I find this comical. Like they want to get so much cap relief, so they did a 1-year deal with a 4-year void on 3.5 million. It's kind of comical. Okay, hey, it works for them. They're smarter than us.
Write it out.
Yep. And on that, his signing bonus is 2.375 million, so that gets prorated. His base salary is fully guaranteed as well, 1.15 million. So all the cash, 3.5 million, is fully guaranteed. So it's just kind of weird how they, as this guy told me, Bond and Devin White got fully guaranteed at 3.5 million. They really, I love to know, and I don't know if Howie talked about it during his free agency press conference or Fangio or anyone. I don't know. Did they really like him for that draft in 2020? I don't know.
Zach Vaughn?
Yeah. Did they have a high grade on him or something? I don't know.
I don't think they did. I remember, we shared this with the Patreon community. They thought he was a good athlete.
Yeah.
There was some curious about his processing ability. I think that's why they weren't sure if he was inside or outside linebacker, where you don't have to process as much. So I don't know. You know how they do value with the athleticism, though.
Sure. I mean, he's bigger than your average size in today's inside backer. So we'll see what happens in training camp. If they play him on the outside. Quite frankly, I don't know why, because their outside backers are not back. They're really not. They're not backers. They're really edge rushers.
Yeah.
They don't need him to do it. Why not play him just inside? Because right now, if we get to the other players, their edge rushers, they have a lot of them. Yes, they have questions, but they have a lot of them. They've got Huff, they got Sweat, they got Smith, they got BG, they got Hunt. They've got they've got Terrell Lewis, and they've got the Aquara, who we talked about the other show. So they don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
They just need to find guys who could be consistent. And then inside backer, you've got Bond and White on 1-year deals. Burks is on a 1-year deal. Nakobe Dean's on the 3rd year of his deal. And Van Suerman, who you mentioned earlier to start the show, Andrew's talk with him on InsideTheBirds.com, and Trotter Jr. and Brandon Smith. So they've got a lot they have plenty of players. That's not the issue. The issue is what can you reasonably expect? By the way, Burks, 1 year, 1.5 million. They fully guaranteed a lot of it, 875 million. I mean, 875 million, idiot. 875,000. So they clearly believe he's going to be on the roster or be a backup, certainly. But I know Cosell likes him. He is long, man. He is. Yeah. Through.
Yeah. Kind of like the Zach Cunningham prototype there.
Yeah.
I don't know. All this 1-year deal stuff is just,
again,
it's a long way of saying that, don't buy an inside linebacker jersey for the fan, because they'll have 2 new ones in 2025 and then 2 more new ones in 2026. We know that.
Yeah. So that's inside backer.
All right, let's move on to the safety. I'm sorry, the secondary. Before we do that, let's pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Scholler, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. If not, visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. All right, the CJ Gardner-Johnson saga part 2 happened last. He came back to the Eagles under the contract that he probably had wanted 2 years ago. But when you slice it up, look at it. It's all this. It's a 3-year deal disguised. It's a 1-year deal disguised as a 3-year deal.
Right. Honestly, I know some people are saying it's a tier structure. I don't see it that way. See, I look at it. When could a team reasonably walk away when it doesn't really hurt them?
Right.
And it's clearly after 1 year. So I know it was reported because the agent gave it to some of the people, some of the reporters, as 3 years at 33 million. It's not. It's 3 years at 27 million. There's upside of 33 million, but the real cash is 3 years, 27 million. 10 million is fully guaranteed. He'll see 8 million of that in year 1, 2 million in year 2. So they could reasonably walk away after year 1
easily
and only owe him 2 million. By the way, the 2 million's got offset. I know that for a fact. So they could easily get out of it. And look, what happened 2 years ago was simple. They wanted Gardner-Johnson back badly. They thought he kind of would be realistic. He wouldn't back off of. I don't have a problem. I don't think anyone does, of being super high on himself. Who else will be higher on us than us, kind of thing.
Right.
And he thought he was worth way more than the Eagles were offering. And Eagles got kind of frustrated, and they said, you know what? This is around the time that they turned to Slay and changed their mind. If they told Slay they were going to cut him, later that day they wound up extending his contract and giving him more money, guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of pivoted. Gardner Johnson just would not change his mind. And unfortunately for him, he suffered a torn pectoral muscle. To his credit, he came back way earlier than he was expected. But Melifonwu took his job, and they were not going to bring him back because Melifonwu was getting the job, and they know CJ would not be happy being a third safety or backup nickel. So he went to Philly, where he played exceptionally well. The tape was really good. He's a compact guy. You worry about the injury history. You're never worried about the performance. He's great. And I just hope for his sake he could stay healthy, because I could certainly see him and his agent, Kevin Connor, going to them. If he tears it up, if he kicks ass, they go deep in the playoffs, and when everybody knows he's just as good as he was 2 years ago. Would it surprise you if they redid his deal, or if they went to him and said, hey, you got to take care of my guy?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, there's a little bit of guaranteed money year two, only $2 million. But let me see what the dead money is. Let me see if there's any kind of issue if they walk away from a year.
Yeah. Well, you do. I mean, I like to call these high-end prove-it deals. There's the low-end prove-it deal where you're on a 1 year, $800,000 guaranteed, and you're just like, or maybe $1 million, $1.5 million guaranteed. This is a higher-end prove-it deal. He still has to go out there and play well to be able to see year 2 and year 3 of the deal.
Yeah,
or get that restructure.
Yes, I agree. I can't tell based on what was given to me, but again, the only guarantee is the $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got an option bonus due, I should mention, in March. So they whether he comes back or not, well, they'll have to make a decision by then. But everybody wants us to work out. This guy is such a unique football player, and it's the craziness of remember, the Saints did not want to extend his deal in 22. The Eagles, when did they make that trade? Was it at the 53 cut down? Was that when they did it?
Or
the original deal to make the trade from the Saints. When was
it?
Yeah,
it was a week before the season opener. That's right.
That's crazy. That is, and it tells you how smart he is. His training camp with the Eagles was in season, and to play at that elite level is just it's hard to do, man. I mean, give this guy. He's obviously very smart.
Yes,
to be able to do that.
I remember being told this about him when the Eagles were scouting him coming out of Florida. That he. It's weird because he had some immaturity about him, off the field immaturity. That sometimes you see he gets under people's skins. We talked
about that before.
But that they also found out in just talking scheme and defense with him that he was very, very bright and that he really understood defensive nuance and scheme.
So one story before, I know we've told this in Patreon a little bit, but just real quick. So last summer, I was with the Lions and Jaguars in Detroit for 2 days. He was so disruptive just with Doug Peterson. He was just he's screwing around, just jawing with the players and their coaches during a play. Doug stopped, and he doesn't really get upset. He goes, "Will you stop?" And it was just really I'm like laughing. I'm like, I've never seen this before. We're trying to get a play, we're trying to run this play, and it worked. Hey, now of course there are no fans. Well, there were fans, but they're not loud enough to distract. So it was great. And his ability to track the football is something I've never seen before. Other than, as Cosell said, Ed Reed. Not that he's Ed Reed, but Greg brought it up.
Yeah,
the closest thing he'd seen to anyone tracking the ball like this had been Ed Reed, who's a Hall of Famer.
That's a good comparison right there. Yeah, he certainly's got skills. Just got to stay healthy.
Yep.
And his run defense isn't great, but you sort of sacrifice it for what he can do to flip the field for you.
Q&A pointed that out, right?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious. I know. Yeah, they were as a safety, right, and as a nickel or as a inside slot receiver who has to block. Jason and Q they took umbrage with his inability to tackle in the hole and at the point of attack. All right, let's move on to some corner. I mean, we have to discuss what the James Bradbury penalty is going to be when he's finally not an Eagle and what they're still paying him. So go ahead.
All right, so he's signed through 2026, but the reason why he's on the roster is because of what he's owed. His base salary of $1.21 million. The deal almost mirrors Slay's exactly. So he's signed through 25, but this year's money is fully guaranteed. The veteran Minimum base salary of 1.21 million is fully guaranteed. The option bonus is fully guaranteed of 9.64 million. 10.85 million fully guaranteed total. That's why he's not cut. I mean, we all know this.
Yeah.
So that's why they're trying to salvage his career. And I mean, we've asked a lot of people around the league. They're like, he doesn't move well enough even to play corner right now. He didn't move. The tape showed he didn't move well enough. His reactions weren't good. He couldn't transition like he used to, where he did very well in 2022. So for now, he's on the roster. Man, I give Howie like an A+ if he could find a team that would give him a 7th round conditional pick, and where they don't have to eat even if they could only eat 5 million of the 11 million, just about 11 million, that's a win. Right. I just don't see anyone taking any of that deal. But I always say never say never. You don't know what the other 31 teams are thinking sometimes. You just don't.
100%. All right. The next deal contract we're gonna talk about could be like the steal of the century. It's almost a slap in the face for the guy who had to sign it. Now you understand why, because of his injury history. But Avonte Maddox gets what I call the low end 1-year prove it deal, where $875,000 is fully guaranteed. I mean, compare that to Zach Bond's $3.5 million, or even Paris Campbell, who got just over $400,000. I mean, it's more than Paris Campbell, but Avonte Maddox has been like when healthy, a pretty good player for this
team. Here's why though. They had leverage.
They healthy enough. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Remember, let's not forget.
Leverage. They
totally cut him.
Right.
They already cut him.
Yeah.
And so they had leverage, and clearly it's one of two things. Avonte wanted to be an Eagle, and we're not sure if he had another offer, but and we know he loves Philly, and he's been a good Eagle. He's just been hurt a lot. But bottom line is 1 year, $2 million, under 1 million of it's fully guaranteed. That's a very cuttable contract if he doesn't play well. And by the way, he's got competition. DeJean could be their nickel corner.
Yep.
Tyler Hall is going to make just under 1.2 million. 225K is fully guaranteed of the 1.175 million. So the reason I wanted to mention all these guys, the Maddox and Hall, because they're competing. Maddox is the nickel corner for now, but who knows when they open up training camp? If DeJean is there, it's hard to imagine that he won't be their nickel corner, because nickel inside corner, because the DB's coach said they want to transition him to one position, so he'd have to play 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
So that could be a problem for Avonte.
And on the other side, one of his competitors will be Tyler Hall, a nickel corner who also signed a low end, very, very low end prove it deal, 1 year, 1.175, 225,000 fully guaranteed. I mean, you are barely above Nick Morrow territory when you're only getting 225K guaranteed.
But that's more right. But that's more than the guarantee that Morrow got. Zero.
Right.
And that's probably, I'm pretty certain it's one of those practice squad guarantees where if he doesn't make it, he's guaranteed to make at least 225K this year. But I forgot that Hall was with the Falcons as an undrafted free agent in 2020. I give the guy credit. He's been cut a ton, and he stuck it out with the Falcons and then the Rams, then the Raiders, and now he's an Eagle, and he's still competing. He's a smaller guy, but very competitive, and that's what our Raiders guy said, that that really stood out with their former coaching staff. So we'll see what happens. But the cool thing is they finally have some competition. They're not relying on Maddox anymore. They actually have competition. By the way, I know Rodgers didn't really play inside nickel. He played outside nickel for the Colts. And then Kenny Moore went inside in nickel. But most teams thought Rodgers long-term would have to play inside. So we didn't see him play inside in OTAs, but we'll take a look. And don't forget, Zach McPherson, he's an inside corner. Well, he didn't really practice much in OTAs, but we'll see what happens in training camp.
Well, everybody we just talked about at that position, whether it's, Tyler Hall, DeJean, Isaiah Rodgers, McPherson, I mean, it's all basically low-end rookie deals or 1-year deals. So if the Eagles do get good nickel corner play this year, they're getting it at a great price, because no one's going to be making a lot of money at that spot the way the contracts are.
The only issue that I have with it is much like last year. They did a ton of 1-year deals. A lot of them didn't work out, or if the guy was on the roster, didn't perform well. Now, the level of player they have this year is better for these guys on 1-year deals, but again, there's a reason why they're on 1-year deals. They've got to prove it.
Yep.
Like a lot of these guys are signed 1-year deals. Not all of them, but a lot of them will be on the team. But as Joe Banner told us years ago, he liked players on 1-year deals or on the last year of their deals, because they know they got a lot to prove. And you saw what the guy that had a low end deal was TJ Edwards, and he was able to play. That's a good example of a guy who had to prove himself as an undrafted free agent. And if you keep working hard and you keep learning and you don't complain, you just do your job, you never know what'll happen. And then he signed a nice deal with the Bears.
Yes, definitely. Great stuff. That's going to put a bow on one of my favorite podcasts that we do every year, the Contract Podcast. It really puts into perspective what this team's going to look like, could look like this year and going forward, and what these contracts mean for the short term and the long term of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.